Hi everybody, and welcome back to 3 by 224. Today we are going to I'm going to talk about blocks 11 through 20, and there are three different things I want to talk about. One is the shaded 4 patch, which is on part of block 11, and the other is about trimming up your half square triangle squares, as well as maybe trimming the seams from the 9 patch. So in other words, the horizontal and vertical seams in the blocks. Because the blocks are only 3 inches square finished, we have a problem with 1/4 inch seam allowances because they're quite large, and you can trim them down and it'll make it easier, and the wool blocks will lay a little bit flatter. Okay, so let's go on to block 11. So block 11 here, let's go here. So block 11, as you can see, has this thing, this little shape in here. Now with a shaded 4 patch, let's bring it up. Usually the shaded 4 patch, you have the extra square here to make a half square triangle, half here, and then the shaded 4 patch here. And what I'm going to show you is how to make it instead of cutting these to the exact amount with the 7/8 inch extra added to the finished size. We're going to cut rectangles. Also with a shaded 4 patch, this can also be just a plain square, but this block has a half square triangle, so you'll see a lot of them, the shaded 4 patches do. This is just one big square, and generally it's the same color as this part over here. Okay, so, and what I've given you is a little template that you can use for cutting, or if you have any of these triangles, it has to be a 45-degree though. So you have a 90 and then 2 45s. You can use one of these, or there's another triangle here. Now this one here is good too. It's a 45, but if you can see, it has this little, let's see, can you see it? Let's see if I can find something that's black. Well, here. There we go. Can you see the line there that goes across the point? That's where, let's see here. There we go. Oh, my lighting's getting in the way. Okay, so that's where, if you cut a square or a rectangle, that's where you would line the fabric up. So you line the fabric up here. Okay, so with this one, if you have this kind of a ruler, you could also draw a line perpendicular to this edge here. So perpendicular to this edge, you could draw a line straight up here, and that would give you the same thing. Or I have another ruler here too. It has the point and it's blacked out. So you can use any of those if you want. Okay, so I'll also show you how to do it with just a plain square, and we'll line, but you have to have a 45-degree diagonal line. Let's see. There we go. You have to have that 45-degree diagonal line. Corner to corner. This happens to be a 3.5-inch one. You can use any of your 6-inch, 6.5, as long as it's a square and it has the 45-degree. Okay, so what I have you do is first make your half square triangles. Now, normally I've been trimming these seams here, but I'm not going to this time because I've had you press to the background, and the background is on the outside corner here. So it won't interfere with any extra seams in that, so we're not going to worry about that. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is stitch. I have you lay out like this, so I have the fabric laid out, and then we're going to do is stitch here. Oh, one thing you're going to say. When I was cutting my squares, this is part of the selvage where they have the stuff written. Now when I trimmed it down, I tried to make sure that this was within the 1/4 inch. So if that happens to not to worry, you can always get away with it as long as this is less than a 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so we're going to sew this together first. Oops. Sew this together like this. So I'm just laying it out because I'm going to sew this first and then this. Then we'll do the same here and here. Okay, so I'll take and sew it together and come and press it. And we're going to press to the rectangles each time. So it'd be just like if you were sewing this normally, you would always press to your triangle. So that's why I'm having you press to the rectangles. Okay, so we'll see you in a bit. Okay, now you can see I've got these sewn together now. And so the next thing we need to do is sew the top row to the bottom. Top row to the bottom. Okay. Okay, I've got these sewn together. Now, like I said, normally you would press, if you were sewing these individual, you would press up this way towards the triangle and this way towards the triangle. But with this, if you'll end up either pressing it up this way and up that way. So in order to make that work so we don't have the bulkiness of the seams, what you can do is you fold this in half, and where the seam is, only the seam, make sure it's the seam, you can clip this. And it doesn't matter if you clip into the seam, like if you clip the actual seam or just into it. Then you can open it up, and now you can take it to the iron and press it into the solid, into each direction, because you've opened this seam here. So let's go do that. Okay, and now you can see I've pressed this half to the solid and this half to the solid. And I flipped it over. So what I did was I pressed on each side to set the seam, and then I just folded it over like and pressed each. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to cut along here. So this is the triangle. that I cut out of here. And I just lay it on so that it all measures. And then if you want, you could put some like just hit a dot with glue and put it on there so that it'll stick. And then just take a ruler. Here, I'll use this one. Oops. Yeah, so just dab. It's easier if you just dab a little bit of glue on the back of the paper. Okay, so I'm just going to hold it here. Now, what I did was I lined my 45-degree angle on the square along the bottom here. And if you look straight up, you can see that the outside edge of this rectangle is even on these cross hatches here. Okay, so now you just trim it away. Started moving there, so I'm going to start at the end and go back. There we go. So you notice how the fabric kind of shifted. So go as far, and when it shifts, then just roll back this way. Okay, so now we have the first one of these cut. And you can see that they all go out to, your seams all go out. Okay, so then on the next one, you can do the same thing. You can put the paper up here and trim. So this is the little wastage you get. Or, I'll show you what I did with the ruler here. You have to take the 1/4 inch line, and you have to make sure that it runs through the corner here and touches the corner of your square. So it has to touch. You see that you want a 1/4 inch from here perpendicular to this line here. So from here out to here, this point here is where your 1/4 inch should line up on your ruler. So you put the 1/4 inch, so it goes on the outside there. And it should go through the corner down here. And this line here should be straight on top of your fabric. Okay. So I'm just going to adjust it a little bit. There we go. To double check, you can take your template also and line it up. And if you need to, you could also glue this onto your ruler as well. Okay, so there we have it. Whoops. This is a little more complicated. Okay, so now we're going to trim this off. Whoops. Helps to have it so that your ruler grips. So see how it was shifting a little bit? So now I'm just going to roll it backwards here. There we go. So now we got 2 of them done. Okay, so on the last one, I'm going to show you what you can do if you have one of these rulers that has the cutoff point here. Okay, this is always fun trying to figure out which way it has to go. So, okay, because I don't really want to flip it over. So I'm going to flip this over here and do it from this side. Now let's just make sure I'm doing this right. So there, I laid it over that way. And I'm lining, remember that yellow line I said that was across there? Now when you cut squares for half square triangles, this is the dog ear. This part here is the dog ear. Let's move this down a bit here. So this is the dog ear that we're always clipping off. Okay, so I'm going to line that up. I'll stand up for this. Line that up. I've got it lined up on the bottom here. So hold that. And you can see my 1/4 inch line goes through the point there. So whoops, I was doing good there. So the 1/4 inch line goes through the corner there. And it's the same shape as the one I cut with the template. And there we have it. So we've got that cut off. Now we'll take this and we'll do the same thing. So if you want, I flip this over. And I'm lining it up on the edge here, across the bottom. Gonna make sure my 1/4 inch line goes through here. The top is here. Okay, we're gonna trim this off here. Okay, so there you have it. Now if we were making a true shaded floor patch, we would sew the other half square triangle onto here. But this time we're sewing it onto a diamond square, and it's been rotated to the shape of a diamond. So what you want to do, I'm just going to fold this in half and pinch it here and pinch it here. I'm going to take this, and so that fold should go where these two seams intersect. So I'm just eyeballing it here. Just trying to put my thumbnail there. And that's where it's folded. Okay, so I'm going to stitch across here and then we'll repeat the other side. Okay, if you want, you can also take a pin. Where are we here? You can take a pin and put it in at that intersection there. And make sure it's in the fold. Okay, so I'm out a little bit. So I'm just going to move it over just a little tiny bit so that the pin is in the fold there. Now make sure it's perpendicular there. Okay, so now I'm going to stitch across here. Okay, now what I've done, I've gone ahead and pressed, and because of all this bulkiness, I pressed to the center there. Now what you can do is, if you don't want all this bulk, is that I'm going to leave the bottom one here because it's just a straight piece of fabric with no seams. But I'm going to, what they call, layer the seams. Oops, I'm going to do it this way because it would be easier. It'd be easy if I cut this as well. So I'm just going to trim off just a little bit. Just a little bit. So it's probably like 3/16 of an inch. So there you see I've trimmed off just a little bit. Like a 1/16 of an inch there. So you can see when I hold the fabric like this, it's been trimmed off just a bit, and that'll also reduce the bulkiness on the other side of the seam. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. So what I did, you fold back the under piece, hold it, and then just trim just a smidge. This time it's not going very well. Okay. I'm going to trim off a little bit more. I didn't get a good chunk of it like that. Got like shreds. Make sure you hold that back. Okay. There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay, so there we go. We've just trimmed it off a little bit there. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing with the other two sides. Only this time I'm going to fold it seam allowance to seam allowance and finger press. And seam allowance to seam allowance here and finger press. And the same thing, we're going to, well, you can use a pin or you can eyeball it where the intersections are and the fold there. Now you'll notice, if you got it right, that piece, the square piece right across here, now lines up with the outside edge. And then this is your little dog ear here. And this piece here where you end should be at the 1/4 inch seam mark as well. Okay, so we'll stitch across here and then we'll go back and I'll do the other side again as well. Okay, one thing you may have noticed is that this piece here is the proper size of my template. But this piece here is bigger. Yeah, it's about a 1/16 of an inch. So when I was trimming this, I didn't worry about this outside edge because we're going to end up squaring it up to begin with. So you may have noticed that. Okay, so now we're just going to take and press it. Like, see, now it's over, but we'll just square it up and go from there. Okay, I've pressed it now. Now all the seams here are going into the center. And again, I'm going to trim off, I'm going to layer the seams and I'm going to trim off these dog ears as well. So, see, I got a bucket of scraps here. Let's do the dog ears first. Rabbit ears, dog ears, whichever, and that takes away some of the bulkiness. Okay, again, pull back the under part, hold it with your fingers and just trim off a little bit. Get my fingers out of the way. For sure, going over that seam, I would end up clipping them. Okay, so that one's done. Fold this back. Yeah, like see when I was holding my finger like that, because this is so big, it's so easy to go snip and then you cut your fingers. So trim to the bulk there. Adjust your fingers. Then you open up your scissors again because you got more leverage when your scissors are, or when your fabric's at the fulcrum of your scissors instead of out at the edge. Then you can gently do it. Okay. So that's done. So that's trim. My seams have been layered. Now remember I said I had a bigger piece on the end here, so now it's time to trim it up. And when I put my 3.5 inch square there, I can still see that I'm going to have a seam allowance there of 1/4 inch, so that's going to work well. So I just trim off this little smidgen here. There we go. And there you have it. Here is your block 11. What I like to do is pull off the little pieces of threads that are hanging around as well. Then it's not so thready later on. Okay, so and there you have it. There's block 11. Okay, so now let's put it up on the wall here. Okay, so here's block 11. Now I'm just going to take these down to where we get to the next blocks, and let's just talk about it here. Okay, so block 12 is pretty well straightforward. I used a stripe here, and I made the stripes all go in one direction. I could have, when I was cutting this, or even because it's a square, when I was putting it together, I could have put the stripes so that they go around in a circle. That's a design option that you can work with. Again, you're using half square triangles. I didn't trim these because the seams weren't going to be so bulky because these are wide open. See, everything is all pressed out. So that's block 12. Now block 13 kind of looks like a little guy or something. I can't remember what this block is called. And the key on this is to press the seams so that they go, well, I've got these going in the same direction, but you could have pressed one this way and one that way, and then when you met this intersection, they would be nesting. But I didn't do that. But that's an option for you. Okay, so, and what I did here was I did the spin and twist. So what you do, you have your seam like this. You open the center, and then with a flick of the wrist, you press this open here. So then the bulkiness isn't here as well. on this one down here, I opened the seam so that the bottom and the full one here is all on this side. So that's number 13. Now 14, this was pretty easy. I had you press, how did I have you press this one? So I had you press 2 to the R and 2 to the background. And then when you put them together, this is where the seams are going in the opposite direction. So then when you sew it together, again, everything is all, see how these all seams all go this way and these seams all go that way. So then again, you just open up this seam here, flick the wrist, and press everything open. So then again, you don't have all the bulk in the center, and it lays much flatter. So, and then the next one we have is 15. It's pretty well the same block as this one. Let's see if I rotate this here. Okay, now you see that it is basically the same, just a little bit of fabric variety, scale. I made this all one color and I made this 2 different colors on a background. So the same shape. The same shape anyways. Okay, so on this one, I didn't trim. Well, it looks like I did trim my seams here on the diagonal. But I didn't trim my seams here because there wasn't too much bulk that was going to be happening. So that's number 15. Okay, so the next one is 16. And let's see which one am I. Got them in bags here, but I wasn't. Let's just put this back up on the wall. So you put these back up on the wall here. You know, when you put this in the quilt, notice I have the block going this way, but you can rotate it and you'll be able to decide that. And the same with this one here. I mean, you can rotate it. You can have it in your quilt this way, or you can have it this way. It just depends on how you want to do it, on how it looks with what blocks and fabric are beside it. This block here, you could have go up any side or even down. Again, that's a matter of choice. You notice I haven't sewn on my sides yet. If I had, I will do that soon. When you go to put it on, I mean, it's nothing to rip out a 3.5-inch seam. Many of us have done that, and just to fix a block, and then you can rotate it any which way, and then make sure you sew it on the side. Okay, and then we have this one here. I hope I got them in, well, it doesn't matter if they're in the right order or not, but, well, I shouldn't say that, should I? Let's see. Okay, the first one we did was this. Okay, so this one should be up here. Now, when people were making my 150 blocks, they just sewed as soon as they got a row together, or as they just sewed it in rows, and that's how they put them together. So where what I did, I just left them kind of this the same and laid them all out and then rotated them and stuff like that. That's up to you. Okay, so now we're on 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We're on 16. And it is all these half square triangles. I think this is called birds in the air. I'm not quite sure. But anyways, keep all my little, when I cut a block, I put them all in a baggie. And then I can sit down and just sew. So I've got one block, one bag, and then I can just put it with my instructions. Okay, so now what I did with this one, you see I've sewn all these together. I guess it goes like this, and it'll go together like that. But what I've done is I trimmed all of these diagonals, and I even trimmed the seam here. I didn't trim the vertical seams, but I'm going to trim the horizontal seam, and I'm going to press it open. So that's what I did with this one. Okay, so I'm just going to lay it out here. I just wanted to show you. Now how I trimmed them was, let's do this. Because I'm pressing to the lighter side, I put the lighter side up top. And what you do is you rotate your scissors to an angle, outward angle, and then you trim. And then when you trim it, the piece that's next to here, the top piece will be like a thread larger than the bottom piece. So then when you go to press it, you won't get that shadow. So again, you take your scissors, rotate them at an angle, and trim it off. And then you won't, like I said, you won't have that shadow underneath. Okay, so let's take this and stitch it together. Okay, and we'll come back in a bit. Okay, I've stitched it together with the 1/4 inch seam. Now what I'm going to show you is, okay, so you take this, you find the seam, or you find the pieces, and you just open this, you find the pieces that would go down one way and up the other, and you just flick your wrist like that. Don't pull the threads, just leave them where they are. So I'll do that one that way. And I'm trying to see, it's really bulky here. So maybe what I'll do here is I'm going to open this here. I'm only opening one layer instead. That's still bulky. So let's see if I go this way. Open both. Okay, another trick you can do is you cut right in the center here, this piece. Clip that. Don't clip your seam. Don't clip your seam. So what I did was, see the, I don't know if you can see. See how it's spaced you've got the fabric going around this way and around this way. Clip here, because I want to only move the top. So I clip there, and I want that to go up like that. Got that like that. Okay, sorry, I clipped the wrong thing here. Let's see. I want that down like that. I want that up like that. Okay, I clipped the wrong one. No, I didn't. Okay, so I want that up like that. And this can go there. Okay. I want that up like that. Let me see here. Okay, so that isn't going to work. I was hoping to get it so that this would lay down, but there's bulk here. And no, and because I wanted this bulk up there. So what I think I'll do is I'm going to press it so that it goes like that. So can you see that? I'm going to have not an even press that way. So you didn't have to trim there. But I'm just going to have it bulky here. For some reason this is flat because it's a different thing. So, okay. So I'm going to go press this and then. Okay, so see what I did? I open it and I just press it so that there's a fold here. This one was turned out differently because I didn't have the bulkiness to worry about, so I just opened it up. And the same, and I was able to open it up here. Okay, so that is number 16. And we'll stick it back up on the wall here. Okay, so the last one I need to show you is number 17. Now, if you notice, number 17 has the same 9 half square triangles, but because I laid it out in a different position, I get like a pinwheel here, and then there's a pinwheel here, but it kind of interferes. Now, if I made another block, put beside it, this would be a pinwheel here, and it would go around like that. So also, if you stare at this long enough, you can see I've got like two blocks here. So, this is where your fabric colors, the light, medium, and darks all come in, and how you put this together. I mean, just because I said I made mine all 2 colors, you can make it multicolors if you want as well. Okay, so again, I've sewn pieces of it together. Okay, I have trimmed the diagonals, and I trimmed the horizontals as well, or I guess it'd be vertical. Okay, so that I'm going to lay it out here. Let's see how I put this together. I did some of this because I wanted to show you. Okay, so this piece isn't trimmed here, the diagonal. So I'm going to show you on these how I trim them. Okay, so I laid them both flat. It's flat like this. And because I need the lighter color longer, I hold it up facing me, take my scissors, and I turn them at an angle. Again, I'm only trimming off a 1/16 of an inch. And there you have it. So I don't know if I can show this very well. The green is just a thread bigger than the gray. And I trimmed off about a 1/16 of an inch. Okay. So that's how you do that. I'll do it once more. So again, now see on this, you can see that the gray is longer than the darker color. So if I had left it, I would have got a shadow. But I don't want that. Okay, so take your scissors, rotate them out. Oops. And you want to trim it so it's bigger than an 1/8, but smaller than the 1/4. So about 3/16, eyeball it. Can we see here? You can see that the green is just a little bit longer than the dark gray. Okay. So I've got these laid out here. Let's see. Do I have them laid out how I want them? Okay, this row here is the same here. And let's see here. Those two, it's deceiving because my light here on my paper is my dark in the fabric. Okay, so those are right. Okay, so then this one goes this way. Oh yeah, I want to make a pinwheel. Okay, so I've got the pinwheel here going around. I want to make a pinwheel here. So I made the pinwheel here, and then you just add these two and they both go in the same direction, which is down. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this one to here and this one to here, and then we'll come back. Okay, I've pressed these together. I press these. Now, if you have a hard time looking to see if you got a pinwheel or not, just squint your eyes, and the diagram and your pinwheels will show up, so you can see it here and you can see it down here. Okay, now I'm going to show you what the other side looks like. So you just flip them over. Now you can see with the pinwheels, they're now on the opposite, that this goes around, all your fabric goes around like this. And this fabric all goes around here. Or I guess it goes in the opposite direction, which is what you want. And now if you want, you can trim. I have trimmed these two here. Actually, I trimmed all of the seams I had done previous. So these are the seams I just did, this vertical and here. So I'm going to trim them as well. And I'm going to, again, layer them. Now, it won't matter whether I have this on top or this on top, because my seam is already pressed this way. So I'm just going to go like this. You want to, again, rotate it. So you can either do that, or I can take and split the top and the bottom and just trim away one of them. So that choice is yours. I think I'll just, well, I'm not too worried about down here, but up here, that looks good. Okay. So them back in order. Again, just squint your eyes and you can see the pinwheels go around. Okay, so now we're gonna flip this back over. Squint my eyes again, make sure that they're lined up, and now we're gonna sew all three pieces together. And then I'll come back here. Well, as you can see, when I press them, I pressed part of it down. This all goes, these two, this center one is split open and they go down. And this center one is split open and they go up, and this goes down. So that's what I'm gonna do. Okay. So we'll just stitch it together and press. Okay, so you may have this time around I didn't open this seam here. I found that the bulkiness here was okay, and I was okay with this here as well. So I only opened the centers where the pinwheels were. This doesn't seem to be, and you can tell with your fingers how bulky they're going to be. That's what you have to go by, is mostly feel, not look. Okay, so again, I just opened up at these pinwheel centers. I opened up here and I opened here. I opened up here and I opened up here, and that was all. So I didn't clip my seams here at all or anything, as I did in this picture here. I might have had different thicknesses of fabric or what. I just wasn't happy. So again, I opened up the seam here and the center there. So let's see. There, that's this block here. Okay, so that's block 17. So 17 here. Okay, so 18, 19, and 20. Okay, so let's go here. 18 is just a simple, I think they call it a churn dash. Half square triangles and squares. Now you notice I've gone to kind of a different emerald type green, and that's okay because I'm using the full spectrum. I'm going from yellow greens to blue greens. So yellow greens are up in the lime area and blue greens are down in the emerald type area. It means that there's more yellow in the green than there is more yellow than green when I say yellow green. When I say blue green, that means there's more blue in it, slightly more bluer in it than the green. Okay, so there's that one, 18. The next one we have is, oh yes, the maple leaf. I'll put this back up on the wall here. Okay, so here's my maple leaf. Now this is tricky. I have you cut a 2.5 by 1 1/4 inch rectangle. I have you fold it together, wrong sides together, not right sides. And sew the 1/4 inch. Now, you don't have to do this. because if you want, you could just do a what they call a satin stitch, which is a zigzag stitch. And I fiddled around with this trying to get a size. And as you can see, I've got kind of a loop, but then stems on leaves aren't always equal all the way down. So I didn't worry about that. The only thing you have to be careful is make sure that when you trim the seam allowance away, that it is less than, it is a little bit smaller. It could be just the thread smaller, and that's all this is. Just a thread smaller than the outside edge. So what you do, let's see. Okay, here's a piece of fabric. So you fold it wrong sides together. Stitch the quarter seam. And then you open it up. And you want to press this seam open. So it'll be open like that. And then, well, because this is bigger, this is much bigger than this 1/4 inch seam allowance. You don't have to trim, but you will have to trim on this. So even though it says trim to 1/8, it says trim seam to 1/8 of an inch or so that the seam doesn't show. Because when you flip this here, this is your seam here, but when you stick it on the square and sew it together, this is the other side of this. And then all you do is you just top stitch along the top edge. I mean, you could even do a zigzag on it or a decorative stitch. The choice is all yours. All I did here was a simple top stitch. So that's the tricky part of this. And then you just trim off the pieces that hang over the square before you sew it together. And again, oh, I didn't trim these seams. So as you're going along, you can make the decision whether you want to trim it, make it smaller 1/4 inch than a 1/4 inch or not. Okay, so that's block 19. Oh, again, you noticed I used a much darker, and this is on the blue or green side as well, and then the other green. I mean, if you want to make it all the same color, that's fine as well. Or you could put totally different color in the middle. You could even put the gray in the middle, then the whole... Okay. Okay, so now the last one, number 20. And when I did this, I didn't realize it's not symmetrical, it's asymmetrical. So no big deal, because I thought, oh, maybe I should have put this fabric here, a light fabric over here in this corner to make it symmetrical, but I didn't. And I noticed even when I first made it, I did it that way. Again, I opened the seam in the middle here. It just made everything, even though this isn't quite a pinwheel. I opened up the seam though, and it made everything lay a little bit flatter. So I was happy, and I did it on both sides here. I did it on this corner and this corner here. Is that right? No, I did on this corner here and this corner here. Because you got to remember it's flipped over that way. So I see I didn't trim any of the seams here. So when you're trimming, that it's all up to you how you want to do it. It's harder. You have to do it as you go along. you can't, well, you can go back, but it doesn't work very well. Okay, so there, that's block 20. Okay. So there you go. There's my next 10. Don't forget to post your next 10 that you do. You can put them on, actually, you could just post them on the regular Facebook page, or you can post them in the Quilt Along by Cat Facebook page as well. Anyways, I'd love to see your blocks. And if you have any problems, email me or call me. Email at ask@quiltnasium.com. And so we'll see you in a bit for the next 10. Happy quilting!